At Ridgewood University, a place known for its challenging academic environment, there was one professor who stood out among the rest. His name was Harold Whitaker, and he had been teaching calculus for over 2 decades. Professor Whitaker wasn't just any teacher. He was strict, demanding, and often intimidating. Students whispered about him in hallways, calling him the gatekeeper because of his reputation for making or breaking their grades. But what they feared most wasn't his tough grading. It was his sharp tongue. One crisp autumn morning, Professor Whitaker entered his advanced calculus classroom carrying a stack of papers under one arm and a cup of coffee in the other. The room fell silent as soon as he stepped inside. He glanced around at the sea of faces staring back at him, some eager, others nervous, and a few indifferent. Among those seated near the back was Marcus Johnson, a young man whose presence rarely drew attention. Quiet and reserved, Marcus preferred to keep to himself, focusing intently on his studies rather than seeking recognition from anyone else. The lecture began like any other day. Professor Whitaker scribbled equations on the chalkboard with swift, deliberate strokes. His voice echoed through the room as he explained concepts that seemed almost impossible to grasp. As the minutes ticked by, he paused mid-sentence and turned to face the class. "All right," he said, setting down his chalk. "Let's see if anyone here actually understands what I've been talking about." He wrote a new problem on the board, one so complex that it made several students groan softly under their breaths. It involved multivariable integration, a topic notorious for tripping up even the brightest minds. After finishing, Whitaker crossed his arms and scanned the room expectantly. No hands went up. For a moment, all that could be heard was the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Then something unexpected happened. From the back row, a hand slowly rose into the air. It belonged to Marcus Johnson. Whitaker raised an eyebrow, surprised, but skeptical. "Yes?" he asked dryly, pointing toward Marcus without enthusiasm. Marcus hesitated for a second before standing up. He walked to the front of the room, feeling the weight of 30 pairs of eyes watching his every move. Reaching the chalkboard, he picked up a piece of chalk and began solving the problem. What followed left everyone, including Professor Whitaker, speechless. In less than 5 minutes, Marcus had solved the equation perfectly, using a method that simplified the entire process. It was elegant, efficient, and far beyond what anyone expected from a student in this class. Instead of praising Marcus, however, Whitaker frowned deeply. He leaned closer to inspect the work, searching for any sign of error or worse, evidence of cheating. Finding none, he straightened up and addressed the class. "Well," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm, "it seems we have a miracle worker among us." Turning to Marcus, he added, "But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This kind of performance doesn't come naturally to everyone. Are you sure you didn't copy this solution from somewhere?" The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Marcus blinked, taken aback by the accusation. He hadn't expected applause, but neither had he anticipated being doubted so openly. Still, he remained calm. "No, sir," he replied respectfully. "I worked it out myself." Whitaker chuckled humorlessly. "We'll see," he muttered, then dismissed Marcus with a wave of his hand. "Take your seat." As Marcus returned to his desk, whispers spread throughout the classroom. Some students admired his bravery, while others pitied him for having to endure Whitaker's harsh words. But Marcus didn't dwell on it. Growing up in a modest neighborhood where resources were scarce, he'd learned early on how to persevere, despite adversity. Math had always been his refuge, a world where numbers spoke louder than prejudice. He knew he hadn't done anything wrong, and that gave him strength. Later that evening, as Marcus sat alone in his dorm room reviewing notes for an upcoming exam, he couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. Whitaker's comments stung more than he cared to admit, not because they hurt his pride, but because they reminded him of a larger truth. People often judged him based on appearances rather than ability. As a black student attending a predominantly white institution, he was no stranger to skepticism and bias. Yet instead of letting anger consume him, Marcus channeled his emotions into determination. If Whitaker thought he didn't belong in the class, Marcus would prove him wrong. Not just once, but repeatedly. Little did Marcus know, this encounter was only the beginning of a journey that would test his resolve, challenge societal expectations, and ultimately redefine what it meant to be a genius in a world quick to underestimate him. For now, though, he focused on the task at hand, mastering calculus and proving, to himself above all, that talent knows no boundaries. After the unsettling incident in Professor Whitaker's calculus class, Marcus returned to his dorm room with a mix of emotions swirling inside him. He wasn't angry, at least not entirely, but he couldn't shake off the sting of Whitaker's words. The professor's accusation had been subtle yet cutting, designed to plant seeds of doubt in others' minds while masking itself as skepticism. To anyone else, it might have seemed like harmless criticism, but Marcus knew better. It was another reminder of how people often questioned his abilities simply because of who he was. Marcus sat at his desk, flipping through his notebook filled with neatly written equations and diagrams. Math had always been his sanctuary, a place where logic reigned supreme and prejudice had no foothold. Growing up in a low-income neighborhood, he hadn't always had access to top-tier education. His high school didn't offer advanced math courses, so Marcus spent countless hours teaching himself from library books and online tutorials. He remembered sitting on the floor of his bedroom late into the night, poring over borrowed textbooks, determined to understand concepts that felt like puzzles waiting to be solved. That passion for learning had brought him to Ridgewood University, a prestigious institution known for its rigorous academic programs. Yet despite his hard work and undeniable talent, moments like the one in Whitaker's class reminded him that some people would never see past his skin color. Determined not to let Whitaker's attitude derail him, Marcus doubled down on his studies. Over the next few weeks, he continued excelling in the course, consistently earning top marks on quizzes and assignments. Each time he submitted an answer or completed a problem set, he made sure it was flawless, proof that his skills were genuine and unmatched. But Whitaker remained unconvinced. Instead of acknowledging Marcus's brilliance, the professor grew increasingly suspicious, almost obsessive in his attempts to find fault. After every test, Whitaker would call Marcus into his office under the guise of offering extra guidance. These meetings quickly turned into interrogations. "Explain this solution," Whitaker would demand, sliding a graded paper across the desk. His tone was clipped, his eyes narrowing as if searching for cracks in Marcus's armor. Marcus, unfazed, would calmly walk him through each step, explaining his reasoning with clarity and precision. Whitaker rarely found anything to criticize, but when he did, it was usually something trivial, a minor formatting issue or a skipped intermediate step that didn't affect the final result. Still, Whitaker seized these moments to cast doubt. "You're skipping steps again," he'd say during one meeting. "How do I know you're not just copying answers from somewhere?" Each accusation grated on Marcus, but he refused to rise to the bait. Instead, he responded with patience and professionalism, knowing that reacting emotionally would only validate Whitaker's biases. Inside, though, frustration simmered. Why couldn't Whitaker accept that Marcus was simply good at what he did? Did he truly believe that someone like Marcus couldn't excel without external help? Despite the tension, Marcus found solace in the support of his friends and classmates. They admired his resilience and encouraged him to keep pushing forward. One of them, a fellow student named Sarah, approached him after class one day. "You handled Whitaker's comments so well today," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "I don't think I could stay that calm." Marcus smiled faintly. "It's not easy," he admitted, "but letting him get to me won't change anything. If anything, it'll make things worse." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "Still, you deserve recognition for your talent. You're probably the smartest person in that room, and Whitaker knows it. That's why he keeps trying to tear you down." Her words resonated with Marcus. Deep down, he suspected that Whitaker's behavior stemmed from insecurity rather than malice. Perhaps the professor saw Marcus as a threat, an outsider who didn't fit the mold of what a math genius was supposed to look like. Whatever the reason, Marcus decided not to dwell on it. He had bigger goals to focus on. One evening, while scrolling through emails, Marcus stumbled upon an announcement about a national collegiate math competition. Hosted by a renowned tech company, the event challenged participants to solve real-world problems using advanced mathematical modeling. Winners would receive cash prizes, internships, and opportunities to present their work at industry conferences. Intrigued, Marcus clicked on the link and began reading more about the contest. The challenges sounded daunting, requiring creativity, technical skill, and teamwork, but they also excited him. This was exactly the kind of platform where he could showcase his abilities on a larger stage. However, self-doubt crept in as he considered applying. Competitors would come from elite universities across the country, many with resources and connections far beyond what Marcus had access to. Would he even stand a chance? Sensing his hesitation, Sarah urged him to go for it. "You've got nothing to lose," she told him. "Besides, if anyone can win this thing, it's you." Encouraged by her confidence, Marcus decided to enter the competition. Over the next several weeks, he dedicated himself to preparing. He studied past problems, collaborated with peers, and refined his problem-solving techniques. Late nights became routine as he juggled coursework, research, and practice rounds for the contest. Though exhausting, the process reignited his love for math. Every equation he solved and every model he built reminded him why he had chosen this path in the first place. Meanwhile, news of Marcus's participation reached Professor Whitaker. During a faculty meeting, a colleague mentioned seeing Marcus's name listed among the competitors. Whitaker scoffed loudly, dismissing the idea outright. "He's setting himself up for failure," he remarked dismissively. "These competitions are for students who've had years of specialized training. Someone like him doesn't stand a chance." His comments spread quickly, reaching Marcus through mutual acquaintances. At first, they fueled his determination. He wanted to prove Whitaker wrong, not out of spite, but to show that excellence transcended background and circumstance. Yet, as the competition date drew closer, Marcus realized that winning wasn't just about silencing doubters, it was about inspiring others. If he succeeded, he could pave the way for future generations of underrepresented students to pursue careers in STEM fields. On the morning of the competition, Marcus woke up feeling nervous but hopeful. He dressed carefully, packed his laptop and notes, and headed to the venue alongside other participants. As he entered the bustling auditorium, he felt a surge of excitement mixed with apprehension. Around him, teams huddled together, strategizing and reviewing last-minute details. For a moment, Marcus wondered if he truly belonged here. Then he reminded himself of all the hours he'd invested, all the obstacles he'd overcome to reach this point. Whatever happened today, he told himself, he had already achieved something remarkable simply by showing up. As the competition began, Marcus dove headfirst into the challenges. The problems were intricate and multifaceted, requiring both theoretical knowledge and practical application. In one task, participants had to design an algorithm to optimize traffic flow in urban areas, a scenario involving complex variables and constraints. While other teams struggled to balance efficiency with feasibility, Marcus approached the problem methodically, drawing on his deep understanding of calculus and computational methods. By the end of the session, he had crafted a solution so innovative that it caught the judges' attention immediately. When the results were announced later that evening, Marcus stood frozen as his name was called as the first-place winner. Cheers erupted around him, and teammates from rival schools clapped enthusiastically. Holding the trophy aloft, Marcus allowed himself a rare moment of pride. This victory wasn't just his, it belonged to everyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. And though he still faced challenges ahead, Marcus knew that tonight marked the beginning of a brighter chapter, not just for himself, but for countless others inspired by his journey. The National Collegiate Math Competition had been a whirlwind of excitement, pressure, and adrenaline for Marcus. From the moment he stepped into the bustling auditorium to the instant his name was called as the winner, it felt like a dream come true. Yet as the applause faded and the award ceremony ended, reality began to sink in. This wasn't just a personal victory, it was a statement. A quiet, powerful declaration that talent knows no boundaries, no matter where you come from or what others might think of you. News of Marcus's win spread quickly, first within the competition venue and then across social media platforms. Photos of him holding the trophy circulated online, accompanied by glowing testimonials from judges and fellow participants. "This young man is going to change the world," one judge tweeted, tagging Ridgewood University in their post. Within hours, Marcus became a trending topic, not only among students and academics, but also in broader circles. People were fascinated by his story, a self-taught mathematician from a modest background beating out competitors from elite institutions. Back at Ridgewood University, however, reactions were mixed. While many students and faculty members celebrated Marcus's achievement, there were whispers of discomfort in certain corners. Some professors grumbled about how outsiders shouldn't overshadow traditional academic pathways. Others dismissed the competition itself, claiming it lacked rigor compared to university-level exams. But none of these murmurs came close to matching Professor Harold Whitaker's reaction. When word reached Whitaker about Marcus's triumph, he initially refused to believe it. Sitting in his office, grading papers with a scowl etched onto his face, he muttered under his breath about how such contests were gimmicks designed to inflate egos. "It's not real mathematics," he told a colleague during lunch. "Just flashy presentations meant to impress corporate sponsors." His dismissive tone didn't fool anyone, least of all those who knew how much he disliked Marcus. But as more details emerged about Marcus's groundbreaking solution to the urban traffic optimization problem, even Whitaker couldn't deny its brilliance. The algorithm Marcus had developed combined calculus, computer science, and creative problem-solving in ways that few experts had ever attempted. Not only did it simplify complex calculations, but it also offered practical applications that could revolutionize city planning. Industry leaders praised the model, calling it visionary and years ahead of its time. Despite his growing unease, Whitaker clung to his skepticism. During a department meeting, he brought up Marcus's win, framing it as an anomaly rather than evidence of genuine skill. "These competitions are subjective," he argued, tapping his pen against the conference table. "They reward showmanship over substance. I'm not convinced this proves anything about his abilities." His colleagues exchanged awkward glances. Most of them had seen Marcus's work firsthand and knew better than to doubt his talent. One of them, Dr. Elena Ramirez, finally spoke up. "Harold," she said gently, "you can't ignore the facts. Marcus solved a problem that stumped seasoned professionals. That's not luck, it's genius." Whitaker bristled but said nothing. Deep down, he felt a twinge of something unfamiliar: insecurity. For years, he had prided himself on being one of the best minds in his field. Now faced with a student whose abilities rivaled, if not surpassed, his own, he struggled to reconcile his pride with the undeniable truth. Was it possible that he had underestimated Marcus? And if so, what did that say about him? While Whitaker wrestled with his thoughts, Marcus returned to campus riding a wave of newfound confidence. Friends congratulated him in hallways. Strangers stopped him to shake his hand, and professors who had previously overlooked him now greeted him warmly. It was strange, almost surreal, to suddenly find himself at the center of attention. But Marcus handled it with grace, deflecting praise whenever possible and emphasizing teamwork and perseverance instead. One afternoon, as Marcus walked across campus, he noticed a group of freshmen gathered near the library steps. They were huddled around a laptop, watching a video replay of his award acceptance speech. When they spotted him approaching, they erupted into applause. Embarrassed but touched, Marcus waved and smiled before continuing on his way. Moments like these reminded him why his journey mattered, not for personal glory, but because it inspired others to believe in themselves. Yet not everyone was eager to celebrate. As the buzz around Marcus's win intensified, so did the scrutiny of Whitaker's behavior. Videos surfaced online of the professor's earlier interactions with Marcus, including the infamous classroom incident where he accused him of cheating. Classmates who had witnessed the exchange shared their experiences, describing how Whitaker often dismissed Marcus's contributions or questioned his methods unfairly. Social media lit up with hashtags like #FarmStandWithMarcus and #MathHasNoColor, drawing attention to systemic biases in academia. The backlash forced Ridgewood University's administration to take notice. Complaints poured in from alumni, parents, and advocacy groups demanding accountability. Faced with mounting pressure, the dean called an emergency meeting with senior faculty members to discuss the situation. Whitaker attended reluctantly, bracing himself for criticism. Sure enough, the conversation turned heated when the topic of his conduct arose. "Harold," the dean said firmly, "we've received numerous reports about your treatment of Marcus Johnson. Whether intentional or not, your actions have created a hostile environment for one of our brightest students. We need to address this immediately." Whitaker shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I hold all my students to high standards," he replied defensively. "If Mr. Johnson feels singled out, perhaps he should reflect on whether he's meeting those expectations." The room fell silent. Even Whitaker seemed surprised by his own words. Sensing the tension, Dr. Ramirez interjected. "Harold, no one is questioning your commitment to excellence, but we must acknowledge that bias exists, even unintentionally. What matters now is how we move forward." After a long pause, Whitaker sighed. "Fine," he said curtly. "If the university deems it necessary, I'll cooperate fully with any investigations." Though reluctant, Whitaker agreed to meet with Marcus privately to discuss the allegations. The encounter took place in the professor's office, a small, cluttered space filled with stacks of textbooks and faded certificates. Marcus sat across from him, his expression calm but guarded. For several minutes, neither man spoke. Finally, Whitaker broke the silence. "I understand there have been concerns about my behavior toward you," he began hesitantly. "If I've given you reason to doubt my fairness, I apologize." Marcus studied him carefully, searching for sincerity in his tone. "Thank you for saying that," he replied evenly. "But an apology isn't enough. What I want, and what other students like me need, is for professors to recognize our potential without letting biases get in the way. We're here because we earned it, not because we're trying to prove a point." Whitaker nodded slowly, though it was clear he still harbored doubts. "I'll do my best to ensure that moving forward," he promised, though his voice lacked conviction. Though far from perfect, the meeting marked a turning point. Whitaker may not have fully understood Marcus's perspective, but he couldn't deny the impact of his achievements or the weight of public opinion bearing down on him. Meanwhile, Marcus chose to focus on the bigger picture. Winning the competition had opened doors he never imagined possible, including a lucrative internship offer from the tech company sponsoring the event. More importantly, it gave him a platform to advocate for diversity and inclusion in STEM fields. In the weeks that followed, Marcus began speaking at conferences and workshops, sharing his story with audiences eager to learn from his experiences. He talked about the challenges of growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, the joy of discovering math as a refuge, and the importance of resilience in the face of adversity. Each speech reinforced his belief that representation mattered, not just for individuals, but for entire communities. As Marcus continued breaking barriers, Whitaker found himself reflecting on his career and legacy. Though he avoided discussing the controversy publicly, he couldn't escape the nagging feeling that he had failed as an educator. Teaching wasn't just about impartup. The day of the national math competition had been a whirlwind for Marcus, filled with intense challenges, unexpected triumphs, and overwhelming emotions. But as he stood on stage accepting his trophy, surrounded by applause and flashing cameras, he realized that this moment was more than just a personal victory. It was proof that hard work, resilience, and belief in oneself could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. For Marcus, it wasn't about proving Professor Whitaker wrong. It was about showing the world, and perhaps himself, that brilliance has no boundaries. Back at Ridgewood University, news of Marcus's win spread like wildfire. Students buzzed excitedly in hallways and cafeterias, sharing clips of his award acceptance speech and marveling at how he had outshone competitors from elite institutions. Social media exploded with praise, hashtags like Math Genius and Breaking Barriers trending nationwide. Alumni reached out to congratulate him, while faculty members who had previously overlooked him now greeted him warmly. Even the university president sent a formal letter commending Marcus for bringing recognition to Ridgewood, but amidst the celebration, not everyone was thrilled. Professor Harold Whitaker sat alone in his office, staring blankly at his computer screen. News articles about Marcus's success dominated the homepage, each one highlighting his groundbreaking algorithm and its potential applications. Whitaker scrolled through them reluctantly, trying to convince himself that the accolades were exaggerated. Yet, no matter how much he tried to dismiss the achievement, he couldn't ignore the evidence. Marcus's solution was innovative, practical, and undeniably brilliant. For days, Whitaker wrestled with conflicting emotions, pride, frustration, and something deeper he couldn't quite name. He had always prided himself on being tough but fair, pushing students to reach their full potential. But now, faced with undeniable proof of Marcus's genius, he began to question whether his toughness had crossed into cruelty. Had he underestimated Marcus because of preconceived notions? Worse still, had his skepticism actually hindered rather than helped? Whitaker's unease grew when he received an email from the university administration requesting a meeting to discuss recent complaints about his conduct. The message was polite but firm, emphasizing the importance of addressing concerns about bias and inclusivity. As Whitaker read it, he felt a knot tighten in his stomach. For years, he had dismissed discussions about diversity as unnecessary distractions. Now those same issues were threatening to tarnish his reputation. At the meeting held in the dean's office, Whitaker found himself seated across from a panel of senior faculty members and administrators. The atmosphere was tense, with stacks of printed emails and social media posts scattered across the table. One by one, they recounted incidents where Whitaker's behavior toward Marcus and other minority students had raised red flags. Some described his tone as condescending. Others pointed out patterns of favoritism toward students from privileged backgrounds. When it was his turn to speak, Whitaker hesitated. His instinct was to defend himself, to argue that his methods were justified and that Marcus's success proved nothing about his teaching style. But as he looked around the room, he saw faces familiar and unfamiliar, all watching him expectantly. Slowly, he exhaled and chose his words carefully. "I admit," he began, his voice steadier than he expected, "that I may have underestimated Mr. Johnson's abilities. And perhaps my approach hasn't always been as inclusive as it should be." The admission hung heavy in the air, surprising even Whitaker himself. He wasn't accustomed to apologizing, let alone admitting fault, but as the words left his mouth, he felt a strange sense of relief, as though acknowledging the problem was the first step toward solving it. The panel listened intently, nodding as Whitaker continued. "I take full responsibility for any harm caused by my actions," he said, his tone softening. "Moving forward, I'm willing to undergo training and make whatever changes are necessary to ensure that all students feel valued and supported." Though far from perfect, Whitaker's apology marked a turning point. The university agreed to implement measures aimed at fostering a more inclusive environment, including mandatory workshops on unconscious bias and mentorship programs pairing underrepresented students with faculty advisors. Whitaker volunteered to participate actively, hoping to repair the damage he had caused, not only to Marcus, but to countless others who might have felt marginalized under his watch. Meanwhile, Marcus embraced his newfound role as a symbol of resilience and excellence. Invitations poured in from conferences, tech companies, and educational organizations eager to hear his story. At first he hesitated, unsure if he wanted to step into the spotlight, but after reflecting on his journey, he realized that his voice could inspire others facing similar struggles. So, he accepted the invitations, traveling across the country to share his experiences with diverse audiences. One of his most memorable speaking engagements took place at a high school in his hometown. Standing before a group of wide-eyed teenagers, many of whom came from backgrounds similar to his own, Marcus spoke passionately about the power of perseverance. "There will be people who doubt you," he told them. "People who tell you that you don't belong or that you're not good enough. But don't let their words define you. Believe in yourself, Work hard, and trust that your efforts will pay off. After the speech, a young girl approached him timidly, clutching a notebook filled with math problems she had worked on during her free time. "Do you think I can do what you did?" she asked shyly. Marcus smiled warmly and knelt down to meet her eye level. "Absolutely," he replied. "If you love math as much as I do, there's nothing stopping you. Just keep learning, asking questions, and believing in your potential." Moments like these reminded Marcus why his journey mattered, not just for himself but for the countless individuals inspired by his example. Winning the competition had opened doors he never imagined possible, from internships at top tech firms to opportunities to collaborate with leading researchers. But more importantly, it gave him a platform to advocate for change in a system that often overlooked talent based on race, gender, or socioeconomic status. As weeks turned into months, Marcus noticed subtle shifts within Ridgewood University. Conversations about diversity and inclusion became more common, both inside classrooms and during faculty meetings. Students from underrepresented communities reported feeling more supported, thanks in part to new initiatives designed to address systemic inequities. While progress was slow, it was undeniable, a testament to the ripple effect of Marcus's achievements. Even Whitaker seemed different, albeit in small ways. During class lectures, he made a conscious effort to engage all students equally, avoiding comments that might come across as dismissive or biased. Though Marcus remained wary of the professor's intentions, he appreciated the change, however incremental. Occasionally, Whitaker would approach Marcus after class to ask about his latest projects or offer guidance on graduate school applications. These interactions were awkward at first, but over time, they developed a tentative rapport, one built on mutual respect, if not complete understanding. Looking back on everything he had accomplished, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude for the challenges that had shaped him, for the supporters who had believed in him, and even for the doubters who had pushed him to prove them wrong. His journey was far from over, but he knew that every step forward brought him closer to achieving his ultimate goal, creating a world where talent is recognized and nurtured, regardless of background or circumstance. And though Whitaker still struggled to reconcile his old beliefs with the realities of a changing world, he couldn't deny the impact Marcus had made, not just on Ridgewood University, but on him personally. Perhaps, he thought quietly one evening as he graded papers, true greatness wasn't measured by accolades or titles, but by the ability to inspire others to rise above limitations and redefine what was possible. The months following Marcus's victory at the national math competition brought significant changes, not just for him, but for Ridgewood University as a whole. The spotlight on Marcus's achievements had sparked important conversations about diversity, inclusion, and systemic biases in academia. For many students and faculty members, these discussions were long overdue. But while some embraced the opportunity to grow and improve, others resisted, clinging to outdated beliefs and practices. At the center of this evolving landscape stood two figures whose lives were intertwined in ways neither could have anticipated: Marcus Johnson and Professor Harold Whitaker. Marcus continued to thrive, both academically and personally. His groundbreaking algorithm for optimizing urban traffic flow gained widespread attention, earning him invitations to prestigious conferences and collaborations with leading researchers. Tech companies vied for his expertise, offering internships, scholarships, and even full-time positions upon graduation. Yet, despite the growing recognition, Marcus remained grounded, focusing on using his platform to inspire others. He traveled extensively, delivering speeches and workshops to audiences ranging from high school students to industry professionals. Each talk reinforced his belief that representation mattered, that seeing someone like yourself succeed could ignite hope and ambition in others. One of Marcus's most impactful visits was to a community college in a neighboring city. The institution served predominantly low-income and minority students, many of whom faced similar challenges to those Marcus had encountered growing up. As he walked into the auditorium, he saw rows of eager faces, their eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. Marcus began by sharing his story, how he taught himself advanced mathematics using library books, how he persevered despite skepticism, and how he turned obstacles into opportunities. By the end of his speech, the room erupted in applause and several students approached him afterward, asking for advice or simply expressing gratitude. Among them was a young woman named Jasmine, who introduced herself shyly. "I've always loved math," she confessed, "but I never thought I could make a career out of it. People keep telling me it's too hard or not worth the effort." Marcus smiled warmly. "Math is challenging, no doubt," he said. "But so is life. If you're passionate about something, don't let anyone tell you it's impossible. You'll face setbacks, sure, but every step forward brings you closer to your goals." Jasmine nodded, her expression shifting from uncertainty to determination. In that moment, Marcus realized that his journey wasn't just about personal success. It was about creating pathways for others to follow. Every interaction, every word of encouragement had the potential to change someone's life. Back at Ridgewood University, the administration worked diligently to implement reforms aimed at fostering a more inclusive environment. New policies were introduced to address bias in grading, hiring, and admissions processes. Faculty members participated in mandatory training sessions on cultural competence and unconscious bias, though not everyone welcomed the changes with open arms. Some professors grumbled about political correctness taking over academia, while others argued that such initiatives detracted from academic rigor. Despite the resistance, progress was undeniable. Students from underrepresented backgrounds reported feeling more supported, and enrollment numbers among minority groups began to rise. Professor Whitaker, meanwhile, found himself navigating uncharted territory. After his public apology and commitment to change, he became a focal point for debates about accountability and redemption. While some colleagues praised his willingness to confront his biases, others remained skeptical, questioning whether his actions stemmed from genuine remorse or fear of further backlash. For Whitaker, the scrutiny was uncomfortable but necessary. It forced him to reflect deeply on his role as an educator and the impact of his words and actions. To demonstrate his sincerity, Whitaker volunteered to mentor minority students personally, including Marcus. Their initial meetings were awkward, marked by lingering tension and mutual distrust. Whitaker struggled to find the right balance between guidance and intrusion, often reverting to his old habits of questioning Marcus's methods. But Marcus, ever patient, used these moments as teaching opportunities, gently correcting misconceptions and encouraging Whitaker to see beyond stereotypes. "You're doing great work," Marcus told him during one session, referring to Whitaker's efforts to engage marginalized students. "But remember, it's not just about fixing mistakes. It's about building relationships based on trust and respect." Whitaker nodded thoughtfully, though he still felt uncertain about his ability to connect with students from different backgrounds. "I want to understand," he admitted, "but sometimes I worry I'll say or do the wrong thing." "That's okay," Marcus replied. "What matters is that you're trying. Just listen, learn, and be open to feedback." Over time, their relationship began to shift. Whitaker started attending events organized by student advocacy groups, listening to stories of struggle and resilience without judgment. He joined book clubs focused on racial equity and social justice, broadening his perspective on issues he had once dismissed as irrelevant. Though the transformation was gradual, it was evident to those around him. Even Marcus noticed subtle changes in Whitaker's demeanor, moments of empathy and humility that hinted at real growth. Despite these strides, tensions occasionally flared. During a heated department meeting, Whitaker clashed with Dr. Elena Ramirez over proposed changes to the curriculum. "We can't dilute our standards just to accommodate diversity," he argued, his voice rising slightly. "Excellence should remain the priority," Ramirez countered calmly but firmly. "Diversity is excellence, Harold. When we include voices from all walks of life, we enrich the learning experience for everyone. This isn't about lowering standards. It's about expanding possibilities." The exchange left Whitaker visibly shaken. Later that evening, he sat alone in his office, replaying the conversation in his mind. Was he holding on to outdated ideals? Could embracing diversity truly enhance education rather than compromise it? These questions haunted him, pushing him to dig deeper into his own beliefs and assumptions. As the semester drew to a close, Marcus prepared for his final exams and upcoming graduation. Reflecting on his time at Ridgewood, he felt a mix of pride and gratitude. He had entered the university determined to prove himself, only to discover that true success lay in lifting others up. His achievements had opened doors not just for him, but for countless individuals inspired by his example. On the day of graduation, Marcus stood proudly alongside his classmates, his family cheering loudly from the audience, as he accepted his diploma. The crowd erupted in applause, recognizing not just his academic accomplishments but the barriers he had broken along the way. Among those clapping was Professor Whitaker, who caught Marcus's eye and offered a small, sincere smile. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, a quiet admission that Marcus had changed not only his trajectory, but also Whitaker's understanding of what it meant to be an educator. In the weeks that followed, Marcus embarked on a new chapter, beginning a PhD program at a renowned research university. His goal was to continue exploring innovative solutions to real-world problems, particularly those affecting underserved communities. Meanwhile, Whitaker committed himself to ongoing self-improvement, determined to become the kind of teacher who empowered, rather than discouraged. Though their paths diverged, the bond they forged, a testament to resilience, accountability, and growth, remained a powerful reminder of the transformative power of human connection. For Marcus, the journey had been challenging yet rewarding, filled with moments of triumph and reflection. He knew there would be more hurdles ahead, but he faced them with unwavering optimism. After all, every equation solved, every stereotype shattered, and every dream realized brought the world one step closer to a brighter, more equitable future. As the years passed, Marcus Johnson's legacy continued to grow, not just within Ridgewood University but across the broader academic and professional landscape. His groundbreaking algorithm for optimizing urban traffic flow became a cornerstone of modern city planning systems implemented in cities around the world. What had started as a competition entry designed to solve theoretical problems evolved into tangible solutions that saved time, reduced pollution, and improved lives. But beyond the accolades and technological advancements, Marcus's greatest impact lay in the lives he touched, students, colleagues, and strangers alike who found inspiration in his story. After completing his PhD, Marcus joined a prestigious research institute dedicated to addressing global challenges through mathematics and technology. There, he led projects tackling issues like climate change, healthcare accessibility, and resource allocation. His work blended cutting-edge innovation with practical applications, earning him recognition from international organizations and governments. Yet, despite his rising fame, Marcus remained deeply committed to mentoring young minds. He often returned to Ridgewood University to speak at events or guest lecture in classes, sharing insights gained from both his successes and failures. During one such visit, Marcus addressed a packed auditorium of students, many of whom were pursuing careers in STEM fields. Success isn't about being the smartest person in the room, he told them. It's about persistence, curiosity, and believing in your ability to make a difference, even when others doubt you. As he spoke, he noticed Professor Harold Whitaker sitting quietly in the back row taking notes. Their eyes met briefly, and Marcus offered a small nod of acknowledgement. It was a moment rich with meaning, symbolizing how far they had both come since their tumultuous beginnings. Whitaker, now nearing retirement age, had undergone a profound transformation over the years. The once stern professor known for his intimidating demeanor had softened. Becoming an advocate for inclusivity and mentorship, he spearheaded initiatives aimed at recruiting and retaining underrepresented students in STEM programs, drawing on lessons learned from his interactions with Marcus and other trailblazers. Though he still grappled with moments of self-doubt, Whitaker embraced the idea that teaching wasn't just about imparting knowledge. It was about fostering growth, resilience, and confidence. One of Whitaker's proudest achievements was launching a summer program for high school students from underserved communities. Dubbed Math Horizons, The initiative provided hands-on training in advanced mathematics, pairing participants with university mentors and industry professionals. Many alumni of the program went on to pursue degrees in STEM fields, crediting Whitaker and his team for helping them see possibilities they never imagined. When asked about the inspiration behind Math Horizons, Whitaker often credited Marcus, saying, "He taught me that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. It's our job to bridge that gap." Despite their complicated history, Marcus and Whitaker developed an unlikely friendship rooted in mutual respect and shared purpose. They occasionally met for coffee or lunch, discussing everything from emerging technologies to societal challenges. During these conversations, Marcus encouraged Whitaker to keep pushing boundaries, reminding him that true progress required constant effort and reflection. In turn, Whitaker offered guidance based on decades of experience, helping Marcus navigate the complexities of academia and advocacy. While Marcus thrived professionally, he also made time for personal pursuits. He married Sarah, a fellow mathematician he'd met during graduate school, and together they built a life centered on collaboration and community. Their home doubled as a hub for brainstorming sessions where friends and colleagues gathered to tackle pressing problems or simply share ideas. Marcus's passion for education extended into his family life as well. He frequently involved his children in math-related activities, turning everyday tasks into opportunities for learning and discovery. Meanwhile, Whitaker prepared for retirement, reflecting on a career that had taken unexpected turns. On the surface, he appeared content, having earned redemption in the eyes of many. Yet privately, he wrestled with lingering regrets. He wondered if he could have done more to support students like Marcus earlier in his career. Would fewer talents have gone unnoticed if he hadn't been so quick to judge? These questions weighed heavily on him, serving as reminders of the importance of humility and continuous improvement. In his final semester at Ridgewood, Whitaker delivered a heartfelt farewell speech to a packed lecture hall. "When I first stood before you all those years ago," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with emotion, "I believed my role was to challenge and push you to excel. And while I still believe in challenging students, I've come to realize that excellence means something different to each person. My greatest regret is not recognizing that sooner." He paused, scanning the room until his gaze landed on Marcus, who sat near the front with a proud smile. "Some of you may know Marcus Johnson," Whitaker continued. "To me, he represents not only brilliance but resilience, the kind of strength that forces us to confront our biases and strive to be better. If there's one thing I hope you take away from my time here, it's this. Never underestimate someone because of where they come from or what they look like. Talent has no boundaries, and neither should our belief in others." The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to the respect Whitaker had earned over the years. As he stepped down from the podium, Marcus approached him, extending a hand. "Thank you," Marcus said simply, his voice filled with sincerity. Whitaker grasped his hand firmly, then pulled him into a brief hug, a gesture that brought tears to the eyes of several onlookers. In the years that followed, Marcus's influence expanded exponentially. He co-authored textbooks used in classrooms worldwide, blending rigorous theory with real-world applications. He founded a nonprofit organization aimed at increasing diversity in STEM fields, providing scholarships, mentorship programs, and networking opportunities for underrepresented groups. His efforts inspired a new generation of mathematicians, engineers, and scientists who carried forward his mission of breaking barriers and redefining excellence. For Whitaker, retirement brought a quieter but equally fulfilling chapter. He spent his days volunteering at local schools, tutoring students, and writing essays about the importance of inclusive education. Though he rarely sought the spotlight, his contributions didn't go unnoticed. A documentary filmmaker even approached him to chronicle his journey from skepticism to advocacy, framing it as a tale of redemption and growth. Whitaker agreed reluctantly, viewing the project less as a tribute to himself and more as a platform to amplify voices often overlooked. As the two men moved forward in their respective paths, their bond deepened. They stayed in touch regularly, exchanging emails and phone calls about everything from current events to personal milestones. On Marcus's 40th birthday, Whitaker sent him a letter that read, In part, "You've accomplished more than I ever dreamed possible, not just for yourself, but for countless others. Thank you for showing me what it means to truly teach and to learn." Marcus framed the letter and placed it on his office wall, alongside awards and certificates testifying to his achievements. To him, Whitaker's words carried more weight than any trophy or title. They represented the culmination of a journey that had begun with conflict and misunderstanding, but ended with understanding and unity. Looking back on their intertwined stories, it was clear that both Marcus and Whitaker had grown in ways neither could have predicted. Marcus had risen above prejudice and adversity to become a beacon of hope and innovation, proving that brilliance transcends background. Whitaker, though flawed, had embraced accountability, using his position to uplift rather than alienate. Together, they demonstrated that change is possible, even in the most unlikely circumstances. And so, their legacy endured, not just in the equations solved or policies changed, but in the countless lives transformed by their example. For every student who dared to dream bigger, for every educator who chose empathy over assumption, and for every skeptic who opened their mind to new possibilities, Marcus and Whitaker's story served as a reminder. No matter where we start, we all have the power to shape the future, for ourselves and for generations to come.